So 2020 has been disruptive for pretty much everyone on this planet. And the stress of a global pandemic, change in routines, change in rules, and just fear of the unknown has put a big strain on us neurodivergent people. It's been a lot, and there's still no vaccine, no answers. We really don't know how long this period of our life is going to last. Some of you might know that I've been depressed and anxious during this time, and I've noticed a lot of my friends and family seem to be struggling as well. I think it's safe to say we're all in a slump, and unslumping yourself is not easily done. But as a somewhat annoying eternal optimist that just keeps on popping up in your feed somehow, I have to believe that we have to keep trying. So step by step, let's set ourselves up to do the best with the circumstances we've got. But I have to say there's something about me that just can't resist that feeling of September coming. That start of a new school year, change in season, endless possibilities kind of feeling. And I thrived on the structure of school, even if I didn't know it at the time. So September for me is the perfect time to do a life reset. And you might be asking what exactly that entails. It sounds a little bit Black Mirror-esque, I think, to go with our 2020 dystopian reality. But the idea is to make sort of a clean start and to get everything back in its place, everything set up for the upcoming term or rest of the year. And try to rein in the chaos a little bit, the chaos that comes from busy or stressful periods of our life, check. Maybe an unstructured period like the summer holidays, check. Or just plain having a neurodivergent brain, check. This video is the last in a 3-part series on executive functioning strategies sponsored by Timo, the visual scheduling app for autistic and ADHD brains. If you want to learn more about them, please click on the link in the description box below. And they have now changed their logo from this to this, so fair warning if you are a little bit sensitive to change. So to start my own reset process, I got myself a new planner for the school year ahead because I like to motivate myself with stationery. So I have upgraded from the Clever Fox to the Clever Fox Pro, which is bigger, better, and has some very helpful goal setting exercises to do, which actually did inspire me this time. I used to set New Year's resolutions as kind of a punishment for myself, like, I'm not good at this, I need to be better. But learning more about effective goal-setting strategies and doing it right actually does help keep you motivated and make you feel good about yourself. Goal setting is something that requires some imagination about what life could be like. But for some of us, it can prompt a sort of existential crisis. What are my values? What really matters to me in life? It can spiral. So proceed with caution and don't overload yourself with pressure or ambitious goals. If in doubt, just keep it simple. But if you feel like the year has been slipping away without much to show for, see what you can think of that would give you a sense of satisfaction, however small, to strive for before the year ends. Because if you don't know where you're headed or where you want to be headed, you won't know which direction to start moving in, and then you'll have no idea what to focus on a weekly or a daily basis. Us autistics are very good at seeing the details, but sometimes less good at seeing the bigger picture. And I personally can do this, but I definitely have to be reminded to take that step back. So if this is something that you struggle with, making, realistic goals, the gold standard for goal setting that actually works uses the acronym SMART. And saying your goals should be SMART means specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. 3 months is a great block of time to make small but significant changes to your habits or routines. And with a 3-month time frame, you can start right now, but the end goal isn't actually that far away, so it's much less overwhelming. And my planner has space for 3 of these 3-month goals, but I think that 1 or 2 would probably work. I think that especially if you're in a bad place, you don't want to be overloading yourself right now. So just pick a couple of goals that you want to try and achieve before the end of the year. So to give you an example, one of my goals is to get my physical and mental health into a good and stable place. And this is something that I have already been working on over summer. As you might know, I took a break from making weekly videos, but having something written down to prioritize or making a video about it sends a message to yourself and your 40,000 subscribers that this is an important thing. It's important, so you have to do it because you're important. I've just realized that my goal isn't actually measurable, so it's more like a SART goal. So I'm going to have to work a little bit more on that. And this just goes to show you that I'm not perfect. either. It really helps to know why exactly you want to achieve these goals. Give yourself a good reason so you'll be intrinsically motivated, not because other people think that this is what you should be doing. And writing down at least the first few steps will help break down that kind of autistic inertia about getting started with something that seems overwhelming, because the getting started bit is the hard bit and carrying on is a little bit easier. And the reason that I started out thinking about my goals is that that's bigger picture stuff. That's where I'm headed or I want to be. And then it's time to kind of narrow your focus down gradually. So what do you have to do to get from where you are now to where you want to be on a weekly basis or on a daily basis? And this can be kind of a hard process to break that down, but having an organized calendar is one of the hardest but most helpful things for me. I know I've gone on about calendars a lot recently, but there's a reason why they help. Some of you might have seen my last video, which is where I showed you an overview of my whole kind of planning system. So maybe check that one out after this one. But for now, look ahead at the next 3 to 4 months. What events are coming up? Well, maybe not this year. But birthdays, birthdays still happen. I find it really hard to keep track of people's birthdays, and it's like they creep up on me and all of a sudden I haven't sent a card because I remember the birthday, but it never occurs to me that I need to actually do everything before that so the card gets there in time. But maybe you could think about buying all the birthday cards you need in advance and like writing them all right now. You can write them and get them all ready to send in advance, and then you just need a reminder to send them. Or look up an online birthday card service. That would be one way of dealing with that kind of problem. I know, mind blown. You don't just have to suffer with these things that you struggle with. There's always new strategies that you can come up with to help this. If you don't get down on yourself for being rubbish or whatever, like, okay, think of it as a problem to solve. I struggle with this, therefore, what can I do to make this easier? So we might not have that many events this year, which is a little bit of a break for some people maybe. But in December, we do have the holiday season coming up, and no one really knows how that's going to pan out this year, do they? So that's fun. If you're watching this in the future, you could think about planning the holiday season, assuming that in 2021, civilization, as we know it, has not ended, and you're not watching this from a post-apocalyptic wasteland. But I guess if you are, at least your internet seems good. Once you have an overview of what's going on for the rest of the year or the next 3 or 4 months, you can have a look at things on a weekly basis. If you or any family member are going back to school or education, maybe you work in education, or you simply have a new job with a different schedule, different hours than you're used to, you might be blessed with a brand new schedule. So it's a great idea to get this into your head and into your planner as soon as possible. And for that, I use Timo, which allows me to create regularly occurring tasks and events. So I can set things up in advance, and then every week it will automatically fill with what I've got to do on a regular basis. And that saves me a lot of time each week. So now we've looked at the rest of the year, we've set up our schedules, broken it down, assimilated everything into our plans. It's time to tackle some more mundane tasks that will make your life a little bit easier going into autumn. This is probably something that some of you do every week, and seriously, good for you, if so. But for the rest of us, now might be a good time to get rid of that basil from 2017 that's been lurking in the back of your freezer that you froze because you had way too much basil that year and you didn't know what else to do with it. Also, now is a good time to look at stocking up in bulk where appropriate, especially if you have a particular way of eating, whether it's, gluten-free or vegan or something like that. It really helps to have a well-stocked pantry. And now that we are 2020 veterans, we all know the importance of having a good stock of toilet paper. So stock up if you can. Now, for the next point, I am probably going to be committing the internet sin of being #not relatable. But one of the things I did over summer was hire a professional organizer. I know that sounds super over the top and unnecessary, but here's the thing, it has helped me a ridiculous amount. And I know that this isn't something everyone can afford. I'm very aware of that. But I truly believe that if you find yourself in chaos all the time, getting your surroundings in order is actually really helpful. And many professional organizers do offer payment plans, if you didn't know that. So they might be more affordable than you think. But there are lots of different ways of kind of dealing with clutter without hiring a professional. It might just take a little bit longer. And I'm one of those people that always has different piles everywhere. I know that they build up and over time you kind of stop seeing them. And I'm very familiar with the pile shuffle, which isn't an octogenarian dance craze, but it's where you try to go through a pile and end up with a bunch of stuff that you don't know what to do with. So you put them in a new pile And so the cycle continues. It's not a helpful cycle. I know that from experience. And now that I realize it stems from one, not having your home properly organized, and two, not having systems in place for the incoming stuff like paperwork. And once you have everything organized and set up and kind of like a workflow, actually maintaining it all is much easier. There are many approaches that you can take to actually tidying up. You can try and tackle the worst areas first. You can try and clear one space and try and get that looking really nice and clear, which will sort of motivate you to do the rest. Or you can start with the area that you spend the most time in. There are a million ways out there to declutter and organize. But if you are constantly overwhelmed by your stuff, I know from experience over the last 10 or so years that drastically reducing the amount of stuff and the amount of clutter will help. And I say this as kind of a reformed, almost hoarder. Look into minimalism. Look, if you hate that idea, you don't have to get rid of everything, or you don't have to pay attention to anything I say, really. But I know from experience that just reducing the amount of stuff you own really helps. And for those of you that already have a kind of system, just put things away back where they belong. Do a little reset, do a little house reset. Having a clean and tidy house for the start of autumn will feel great, I promise. So the last step might not seem to make sense in an executive functioning sort of video, but hear me out. This year has been supremely low on fun overall, which isn't great for the dopamine deficient among us. You need to have something to look forward to. And this is going to depend so much on the situation with regards to COVID-19. And obviously our ideas of fun may differ quite significantly, but sometimes I get so fixated on trying to survive and perfect my routines and organize everything that I forget to just live a little and relax and enjoy something. But the key is not to just give up, dump the whole system and go frolic in the wilderness for 2 weeks. Although you could, I guess. It's about making sure that every week there's a balance, so your life becomes more enjoyable. And it might sound silly that I'm planning in fun, but I've started using the color coding system on Timo to do this as I'm planning my week. So I'm not just living for my child or living to run a household or living to work or whatever, which it so often feels like. But so now everything that I've got color coded in yellow is something that is for me personally. And whether it's okay, going to the dentist is not fun, but I can see what I have to do that's for me as a human being. And that's probably a feeling that you get from parenthood or being a mother or something. But I really think that it's important for everybody to have an enjoyable life and not just survive, but really thrive. And using color coding, I can really see when I plan my week, if I'm not doing enough for myself. And that ties into my 3-month goal of, giving myself the fun I need, which is what I'm going to be needing for my physical and mental health. And trust me, I know this feeling of I don't have time for fun, but when you're in a space, and I speak from experience here, when you are saying I don't have time for fun, that is actually when you need the fun the most. So please tell me below, what fun things are you going to plan out for the next couple of weeks? Because I want to hear your ideas. And I'm not saying you have to leave the house or anything, just do something enjoyable and plan it. This was the last in my 3-part series on executive functioning, sponsored by Timo. Be sure to check out the app because it really helps me stay on task and helps me remember to be where I'm supposed to be at the right time, even if that is just at the other end of the house. If you haven't already, please check out the other videos in the series and I'll see you next time. Bye.